Hello, my name is Justin Bright. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.8.1 in my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And here we are checking in on the Solarback rover, who is sitting in darkness, unfortunately, but we are waiting for the moon to come, or the sun to come around, or the moon to come around, either way, to the point where we actually have sun on our rover so that we can power it up and check and see if our Lunacom 1 has provided us a connection. So I've got a timer in about 9 days, and I'm seeing like a little bit of signal bursting off of there. I'm not sure how it has power. Move this out of the way. Solarback. Yeah, like it occasionally seems to get power for like a second. It has like 9 minutes of, yeah, I have no idea why or how that is the case, but I'm just going to time warp around until such time as we get sunrise on the moon. Looks like it's going to be a little bit less than the 10 days that I had allotted for exactly that. I've also installed, what do you call it, Bon Voyage, which is supposed to help with roving, but I'm not sure that that's going to be something that I can actually use on this one because I think it like has its own part. I'm not actually sure. I haven't checked because my... what do you call it? My list of unlocked parts is pretty darn long, so I often forget to check on it. All right, so we are getting pretty darn close to having sun here. Getting closer. Looks like I was actually pretty dang close also on the amount of time it was going to take to reach sunlight. And there we go. Depleted or perpetual, take your choice. Yeah, so that's pretty darn close, although I can move a little bit further because a little bit more sun would probably be a helpful thing as well. There, let's call it that. That's probably got the sun over the horizon enough to hopefully get signal. So let's go one more orbit just to see what kind of connection we get. Turn that off for now. And as the Lunacom satellite comes around, oh, actually, we're actually pretty close to the RP-1 too. I wonder if that, no, that doesn't have an S-band Omni, unfortunately. Although it does have, it can connect. Wow, look at that. For just a moment, a brief shining moment, the RP-1 was able to transmit science from the Solarback. Yeah, so I'm just waiting to get any kind of signal at all. And then we're going to see what that looks like. And there we go. Looks like we have a bad signal, but that is much better than no signal whatsoever. So let's go check it out. All right, so here we are down on the lunar surface. We actually have sunlight. My goodness gracious. So we have 50% exposure, 20% wear on our solar panels. We have perpetual electric charge. Theoretically. Idle comms. Yeah, we have a net of like just a teensy tiny bit of power. Like that's all we get. Just a little bit. But we should actually have perpetual power for a good long time. And there is my Centaur continuing on its little adventure. It's on its way out of here. But if I turn on my avionics, I have to imagine... yeah, that's going to kill my power. Gosh darn it. So yeah, it looks like we are probably going to need to wait until the sun is more directly overhead because 50% exposure is not quite going to cut it. And we are actually leaning towards the sun a little bit as well. So a couple more days, I think, until it is safe to drive around. But before I unload here, let's just turn on the avionics, turn off the brakes, and see if I can drive just a little bit. Look at that. Ooh, it's a little skiddy there. But yeah, very cool. Yeah, so this seems to be working. Where is my target? Turn on the brakes before you flip yourself over. Activate navigation. Because I have Waypoint Manager, I can see that we are now 25 kilometers away from Lunar Rover Alpha target. Open up Bon Voyage. I don't see that there's anything here that I can do. Reload settings. That's fine. I didn't expect to be able to use this, like I said, because I'm pretty sure there's a part or something that we would need to use. But what I can do for now is just point us in the right direction. And there we go. And then I guess we're gonna find out how nightmarish it is to drive 25 kilometers on a with this rover. All right, so we're back at the Solarback, which I have turned on, and we now have a big whopping 6 hours of power with no movement. Yeah, so that's not great. I feel like I thought that I had packed more power on this thing, like the capability to get more power on this based on the size of the solar panels. But I think what I didn't do was I didn't really internalize what that actually meant in terms of the raw numbers. So this thing has a battery of 56,000 electric charge. If I shut down the avionics, it refills at 0.038 per second, which in terms of the actual power generation and consumption tools that we have available to us, like science and avionics and so forth, that's like a lot more. That's like a little bit more than my avionics, or a little bit less, I suppose I should say, because my avionics is 0.047, my comms is 0.026, my solar panels are giving me 0.066, which on absolute balance with no science running means I'm losing just a little bit of power. But yeah, like the fact that several orbits in the sun, several days in the sun, has only recharged my battery to like 154 units of electric charge is like, oh, right, I am recharging at 0.066 per second. That's actually a tiny amount of power. 0.038 is what I net with my avionics off, and so that's the best that I can hope for even at 90% exposure. So that's not super great. And that's going to make it very difficult to do science and so forth. But yeah, I think we're gonna kind of muscle our way through it and see if we can't do some science and so forth. So let's see just kind of where we're at on that. Doing science experiments will indeed just it will just destroy our battery. It will not be okay. But a lot of these are very long-term science experiments. So we look at the magnetic scan. It doesn't actually tell me how long that is, but I can assume that that is like one of the 30-day ones, I'm pretty sure. Yep, that's 30 days. Mass spectrometry is 14 days. Yeah, so like I said, I could leave this here for a really long time and like it would maintain this level of power at when the body is not occluded. So if you go to the electric charge and the solar panel's average exposure, it says 89.4%, ignoring body's occlusion. So it'll keep it this way regardless of any rotation of the vessel, like assuming it was a spacecraft. But when nighttime happens, like these solar panels are still going to die. Like that's just exactly how that works. And so we could, in theory, leave this on and then try to get the science done, but that would take a bunch of 14-day periods to do each on each one. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to try to rove on to see if I can't fulfill this contract, because that is more interesting to me than getting a little bit extra science. So we're going to turn off our science experiments, which brings us back to a good amount of power. And then if we turn on our avionics and we turn off our brakes and we activate our navigation, we are on our way. Yeah, so this thing roves. Oh dear. Okay, how am I going to do this? Let's see. Kill rotation. Maybe that will help. I don't know if there's is there like a roving mode? RCS balancer, rover autopilot? That's sort of what I'm looking for. Waypoints. Rover waypoints. To target? What do you think I'm targeting? Yeah, so it thought I was targeting Lunacom 1. I mean, I was targeting Lunacom 1. But, you know, before I play with this, I'm going to break. And we are going to save before I do anything really silly. Okay, quick saved. Now I can turn the brakes off, and now we can play with this. So what I'm thinking... All right, well, if nothing else, there is a stability control on this, which is just lovely. What I would love is if I could set a waypoint. Set this as my waypoint. Oh, look at that. Wait, no, that's Lunacom. Remove that. Routes. Waypoints. Add a waypoint. Oh, look at that. I can just, like, drop a big... Boop. What do you think of that? It's sort of in the right direction. I don't want this one. There we go. That's sort of correct. Okay, that looks a little bit more correct. ETA 20 minutes. I'm not super stoked about that, but I guess beggars can't be choosers, question mark. All right, what if I just drive? What if I just say drive? Drive me towards my destination, please. That's pretty damn neat. Pointing us in the correct direction. We're hauling butt at about 10 meters per second. Not sure we could go any faster than that, but and that gives us a 40-minute drive. Oh Lord. Yeah, as I'm driving this thing, I really have no idea why or what this rover autopilot is up to. It feels like I'm not pointed quite particularly at my destination, but I really don't know what else I'd be pointing at. But whatever. I can see now why Bon Voyage is a thing. Alright, so as I'm just kind of roving slowly across the surface of the moon, we've made it about 4 kilometers out of the 25 that we still have yet to travel. I've turned off the waypoint system because that hasn't seemed to do anything useful for me, but heading control, speed control, and stability control seem to help. They seem to keep me pointed mostly in the right direction, which I guess is all that I can ask for. So yeah, this has kind of been my life, and this will be my life for, even if I could just hold this at maximum physical time warp as long as possible, it would still take like 8 minutes or so for me to actually manage to get there. Thankfully, this keeps my speed down to just above 10 meters per second, which is good because these tires, I think, can brake. They have a max safe speed of 11.5 meters per second, and I'm worried about what would happen if I were to exceed that speed. So it's basically I just time warp for a bit, and then I have lost connection, so we better... Oh my gosh, hold on. Can we brake? Oh no, we got no brakes. We got no brakes, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like, yeah, the Lunacom 1 has passed out of connection range, so I have no way to stop this thing. Holy crap, I did not realize... that did not even occur to me to be thinking about. Oh my goodness. If I turn off the controls, well, just leave stability control on. Oh no. Oh, we skidding. Okay, I can turn on the brakes now that I've turned off some of the stability controls and stuff. Okay, we're good. So I can just stop. Let's see. The next thing that we are waiting on is the telenet to come out of the vehicle assembly building in 2 more days. So yeah, I'm just going to continue this. We are 14 kilometers away, so we've actually made some pretty decent progress. And there we go. We also have new science, because I guess we've come to a new biome. That's pretty exciting. And my batteries have charged up a little bit more as well. Very cool. Let's see. So yeah, I think I did all the the really good quick ones. Don't have storage space for any more surface samples. I guess I've already done that, so that's good. All right, yeah, we seem to be in good shape. Yeah, so we're moving right along. Go ahead and turn speed control, heading control back on. Point ourselves in the right direction and just continue. All right, so as we're warping ahead, doing science, roving across a lunar surface, this is kind of sort of like Lunacom 1, at least as far as my intentions. I'm a little concerned about the size of this hill, though. But Lunacom 1 was a Russian rover, part of a pair of rovers that were sent up to the moon, and I did talk about these very briefly when I first landed this thing, but I incorrectly said that it was one of the first rovers on the moon. It actually came after the Apollo landing, so this was not the first thing, not the first rover on the moon. Whoa, we are airborne. Boop. Okay, no, we're doing just fine. This is good. This is a very stable platform, having it very low and very with 6 wheels. All that seems to be pretty stable, pretty handy. So yeah, it came a bit after the lunar landings in November of 1970. But it was the first autonomous vehicle that was able to rove around freely on the surface. Like, there was nothing connecting it. It was just a little bucket-shaped rover that just drove around on its own power, which is real cool. So we're doing that as kind of a way to prepare for our own lunar landings, because I would like to use like the Apollo rover. That sounds like a lot of fun, actually driving Kerbals around, humans around. I never know if I should actually call them Kerbals or humans in RP-1, because they have human names, but they're clearly Kerbals still. All right, easy now. Settle out. Settle down. There we go. We are 10 kilometers away. Eyes on the prize, everybody. Like a lot of spacecraft, it was designed for only a very short period of life, the Lunacom 1 was, but it ended up lasting a really long time. It ended up roving almost for an entire year. It operated 321 days, and it traveled more than 10 kilometers. So we have beaten Lunacom 1's record with our Solarback rover right here, which is just lovely. Getting actually pretty darn decent science. We've gathered about 200 science so far, and I think we've been in like 2 different biomes, and if I had the patience to stop and like do science for a month or 2, that number would go up quite a bit because of the magnetic scan and spectrometry and all of those experiments. That's the thing. You need to be able to like actually post up in a place and stay there for a while to really get the science done. I'm just trying to use heading control to maintain my forward momentum. I want to be pointed as directly at our target as I possibly can be. It mostly seems to be working and helping, but it's really hard to say. All I know is that the distance to Lunar Rover Alpha is decreasing, and once we get there, I have no idea whatsoever what to expect from the other drives, because this contract requires that we land at or travel to Lunar Rover Site Alpha, and then Bravo, and then Charlie. We've done the science, obviously, but we need to travel to 3 different sites, and I have no idea if that... Whoa! That was quite the bounce. Oh, but we're okay. We're okay. This thing is a very stable craft, and I'm really pretty happy with it. Yeah, I have no idea what kind of drive it's going to ask us to do. It could be pretty tremendous. It could be short. I'm really hoping for the latter, but I guess we'll see. All right, so one more pass of the Lunacom 1 satellite to get communications, and we are bit more than a kilometer away from Lunar Rover Alpha, and this drive has just been awful. Oh no! What the heck? I had speed control on. Oh no, my wheels! Why was I going so fast? Oh man. Am I gonna slide to a stop like just a foot away from where I was supposed to be. And there goes my communications. Well, at least I can show off now the design by which I had intended to flip this thing. It's not quite working the way I had intended. Well, so that's my Solarback rover. 500 meters away after a 25-kilometer drive. Oh my gosh. Okay, I hate it. I hate driving rovers. I didn't remember that I hated it, but I can confirm. Do not recommend. What is going on with this thing? Ability control off. There we go. Oh, it's because I have no control, so I can't use my RCS manually. Yeah, because I broke the antenna off. Okay, so that's fine, I guess. I think I'm going to give up on this one, and I'm just going to take the failure. That is pretty frustrating. This thing drove fairly well. It was okay. But yeah, I drove so far, and I haven't been quick saving on the path, and I'm not doing it again. So I'm going to take the penalty for my being incredibly incautious, and yeah, I'm just going to say that any future driving will be done by Bon Voyage. I will not be doing any more manual roving because it is pretty awful. I really can't recommend it. But yeah, so that is the Solarback rover. I think the design is okay, but I've learned a lot about power usage and communications and so forth. So we will take that forward on to future missions. Although it looks like we have a little bit less than a year before the deadline on this, so I could just build a variation of the Solarback with, you know, the Bon Voyage module, whatever that is, and try again. So yeah, let's look at that and see. All right, so I have found the Bon Voyage controller. Unfortunately, I have found it in exactly one place, which is on the Probodobodyne Rove Mate, which makes sense, but that's actually super annoying because that means that I definitely can't be using my Solarback, even though I have a procedural avionics that is designed to look exactly like the Probodobodyne Rove Mate. Sigh. So we're going to fail that mission because I just don't think we're going to be able to get this large-scale avionics bumped up quite fast enough. Let's see what my timeline looks like. Yep, this is as soon as I could get it. So that's 23 days and then 70, 60. So that's 81 days and then another 150 or so. Okay, so technically I could. So if I focus on it like this, then technically I still am in the running, so I will hold on to that contract for now, I suppose. But man, I was really hoping to actually succeed on something so that we could move on. And 3, 2, 1, ignition. Liftoff! We have liftoff of a Titan 3E that is bearing our Telenet probes up to geostationary orbit, where we can have, finally, a low Earth orbit communications network. That's right. We are doing now the geostationary communications network. So I have, with a series of false starts and rollbacks, I have finally gotten this thing to work properly. I basically keep forgetting small elements of the mission, which is causing me to have to roll back after I basically roll it out to the pad. I looked at my contract, started talking, and then went, oh wait, shoot, this doesn't actually fulfill the contract, and then I would roll it back and so that is where we're at, but we are finally there now. I think we have gotten all the issues ironed out such as having, you know, ComSat payload on board and all of that. And we should be ready to finally get communications in addition to fulfilling the contractual obligations that are put upon us. So yeah, we are launching up on a Titan 3E. Lovely thing. With some feedback from you folks, I got a comment that gave me a really good idea of replacing these LR87 boosters with the liquid hydrogen variants, and it worked out pretty well. So let me put up a little screenshot of my current Table O rockets. So you see my Titan 3E is here with about 13,000 funds in cost, and it lifts about 18 tons to low Earth orbit, which is really nice. That's very comparable to the Paladin 1, which is just under 12,000 and gets only 16 tons to low Earth orbit. So yeah, very cool, very nice. But the iterations on each of those are a little bit different, a little bit interesting. We're just about to kick off these boosters, so let's get those off for just a second before we move on. Make sure everything is launching properly. And we have ignition on our LR87 and separation of our solid rocket boosters. We are off and away. So yeah, the upgrade to the Titan 3F is that variant. So I've basically changed the Aerozine engine up here to using Carolox, because I thought I had done that already, but I guess I didn't, because that's Aerozine 50 and NTO, even though this is Carolox. I think this performs slightly better, like it's marginally better by the numbers if you use that up here. But anyways, switching that to Carolox and switching this to liquid hydrogen gives me a pretty decent boost of like about 700 or so meters per second of delta V on the final Centaur upper stage. But the unfortunate thing is that gets me an extra 5 tons, as you can see here, an extra 5 tons of payload to low Earth orbit, which is great, but it costs 21,000 compared to 13 that the original cost. So there is some slight retooling of sizes and so forth that I had to do to deal with the fact that we are using a liquid hydrogen engine instead of a liquid instead of kerosene. Because it's just so much more massive, the requirements of tankage. In further comparison, we have the Paladin 2, which cost me just 21,000, so slightly less than a 3F, and it's actually more capable, 28.4 tons to low Earth orbit by my count. So that is actually a point against the very cool Titan 3F launcher, unfortunately. And we should be kicking off our fairing and firing up our upper stage. I don't know why I can't seem to get my shit together as far as getting the staging correct. I think I've gotten it wrong, but in a different way every launch of the last 3 times I've tried this thing. But anyways, so the Titan 3F, not quite, is a little bit more expensive, but not quite as performant as the Paladin 2. I find it interesting that the losses fall off a little bit. Like, I feel like the Titan 3 architecture is a little bit better at throwing interplanetary probes. Like, it's a little bit more efficient because there's a big fall off on the payload to orbit when you go to interplanetary ranges for the Paladin launchers. But anyways, Paladin 2 is the one that I'm still not sure that I've used yet, but it's a pretty straight iteration on the Paladin 1, and it is 28 tons to low Earth orbit. And the Paladin 3, which is what you've seen me use for the design of the lunar Gemini, is only 22,000 funds, but gets 35 tons to low Earth orbit. So that is going to be my space station builder right there, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with my production line launch vehicles at the moment. Basically just some iterations on existing designs, although Paladin is going to be a kind of a catch-all for a lot of different things because it encompasses basically everything in between Saturn, 1 and Saturn V, and all of the theoretical designs that came out in between are all kind of bundled in and included in what I'm calling the Paladin launch vehicle. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there, and we'll see what ends up being my workhorse going into the future, because we need larger and larger payloads over time. All right, just another second until we kick off our upper stage and our second stage and get the final upper stage ready to roll. This is going to be bringing us up into an orbit that is, well, we are going into a 150 kilometer parking orbit, because that is usually more efficient to do first before you go any further. But from there, we are going to go to kind of a funky and interesting orbit. But it's going to look very similar, at least at first, to our normal geostationary orbit profile. All right, so ascent is complete. We are in orbit. Fabulous. That is just fantastic. So now let's see. All right, so we are now targeting the resonant orbit that we are going to be using to drop off our 3 satellites. So I want to start off by setting our perigee, or our new apogee, from now to 35793, and we are going to do that at the equatorial descending node. Create and execute. All right, so we are time warping over to our that first of the burns that we are going to be making, and we have a lot of burns that we are going to make. So this one, we have plenty of extra margin because everything needs to be just so precise. Like, this needs to be, there's a lot of precision that is required to get the orbit perfect. As I understand it, the absolute most important number is not like the exact apogee and perigee and all of that. It's the orbital period. If you can get the orbital period correct within like a 10th or 100th of a second, more ideally, then you are going to stay in the correct synchronization over a good long period of time. And that is what I'm hoping to do, because these satellites I would love to have sit in this orbit for a very, very long time. I do not want to have to do a whole bunch of new networks until such time as I get much better technology, right? Like, I would like to do this again when I have better dishes, better power generation, better even better if I have RTGs that could really power this. Like, that would be lovely. But I can't be making a whole bunch of these all the time. You know what I mean? I would really like to be able to do this once and then just be done with it. But this is going to be helpful, and once again, the problem that this is trying to solve is, well, there's a contract, first of all. But the other part of this is going to be making sure that we have consistent 100% online communications in low Earth orbit. That is a helpful thing, a very helpful thing. And that is what I am hoping to get out of this. So we are going to, that is good enough, I think. 35793 point prograde. I got a bunch of extra HTP, so we can try to make this a little more precise. 35793 Perfect. Okay, so that's what we're looking for step 1 of this plan. Now I am going to extend all of these solar panels, at least the ones outside that will hopefully not break when I decouple some of these spacecraft. There we go. And I know it's going to throw me off of my throw me off a little bit, but we're going to point the sun up, which I believe will get our tank pointed engines toward the sun, as well as solar panels to charge our batteries. This does have deep space communications, which is both necessary beyond or at the high orbit that we are going to, but also necessary to, save battery over the course of this trip. So this is what we're looking at for now. The next step is we are going to be getting into a higher orbit, not a low one. So there is a resonant orbit that you could do that is like lower than geostationary height, but that cost a whole bunch more delta V to for the actual probes themselves. So there's no reason, with 5,500 meters per second remaining on this monster of a Centaur, to go to the higher orbit that we can drop probes into that costs almost half of the delta V. So we're going to change inclination to 0, and then we are going to change our... I guess it would be our perigee. Well, I guess, no, it would be apogee. Change our apogee to 53621. And we're going to do that at our next apogee. Right? Yeah, that looks right. Perfect. Okay. And then we can merge those, and there we go. That is our plan. It's going to just cost us 2,000 meters per second, so you can see I have dramatically overloaded this craft. But that's fine. I'm not that worried about it. Yeah, so that is what we're looking for. I'm going to just drop a node here so that I can just time warp and not have to worry about that. There we go. Beautiful. Just a couple minutes away. Now I can execute next node. And that way we spend as much time as we can making sure that there's not too much heat on our on the walls of our tanks, or and we also have plenty of power for what comes next. All right, so yeah, this is going to be the big one. This is going to be the burn that determines the vast majority of what we're doing. We are going to be dropping our inclination down to 0 and trying to get our orbital period to exactly 31 hours, 54 minutes, 45.5 seconds. That is what the resonant orbit is. That is going to get us into the correct, that is going to determine the best way to drop off our satellites. Because of math. There is a the resonant orbit is something that it's going to a resonant orbit is one that is going to regularly cross over the intended final orbit. So it's going to do this exactly 3 times. It's going to hit the it's going to hit this perigee 3 times exactly, and that's going to put one of these probes 1/3 of the way around. So it's just going to be like, that's just the math that makes it so that every time that I hit this perigee, the other probe has moved to a point where they will be equidistant if I drop them off on 1, 2, 3 times through this orbit. So yeah, that is what we're going for. But first I need to get into actual orbital resonance. And in this case, I'm looking for, we're a little bit off now, so we can fix that, no problem. But the orbital parameters that I have in front of me are, we want to be at 0 inclination, and that is super duper not 0 inclination. But we need 53621, which is not too far off from where we are, actually. So I can fix that right now. 53621,357. 1. Yeah, okay. So that's close enough. Like I said, the orbital period is the important number. So that's step 1. So we are actually looking at, I'm actually pretty darn close. I'm about 15 seconds away from the correct orbital period, but we want to make sure that that's fixed. And we also want to make sure that our inclination is 0. So we're going to do that first. Because every little bit of work that I do with this thing is going to be paying dividends for each of these little probes that we are going to be launching off of it later on. All right, so that gets us down to 0.007 degrees of inclination, which is better. Yes, so we want to be as close to 0 as absolutely possible. So yeah, the way that this works is that at our perigee, at each of our next 3 perigees, we will be dropping off 1 satellite, and it will lower its apogee down to the correct circular orbit, and then that should, by just the definition, by just the mathematics of the way those orbits are, the size of these orbits and their orbital periods, should make it exactly perfect because if you were to like look at how long my orbital period is now, we have 1 day and 7 hours. So that's a little bit less than 8 hours. And then so that's each time I go around this orbit 1 day, like the intended orbit of our, what do you call it? Our geostationary satellites is about 1 day, right? So you subtract that and you have about an 8-hour orbit. So that means that every time that we hit our perigee, it's been 1 day and 8 hours. So that means we hit 1 day, and then that the probe that we drop is going to circle 1 day. So that's exactly perfect. And then it's going to go an additional 8 hours, which is 1/3 of its orbit. So that is what that math is. And there is a calculator online that I used that Eric Meyer created. That's the name that I see attached on this website. But yeah, it was like the first thing I found on Resonant Orbit, and it was just a perfect little, very minimal calculator that helped me to figure out what the math is so that I don't have to do that myself, and I can just do the flying, and that's all I need to do. So yeah, now it's just a matter of getting our, tweaking our orbit down to be as perfect as it possibly can be, and then dropping off each of our 3 communication satellite probes. But I think I am all out of time, and I may have to leave it there. So we will leave that on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and we will get to this in the next episode. So if you enjoyed this one, please like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Do all that. That really helps me out, and I will see you next time.